Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, my obeisances to you.
All obeisances, mother. Yes.
Hare
We start
Bol.
in 15 minutes time.
Okay.
Just sitting on
You
now.
look like you're on the beach somewhere.
No, it's background. It's from the laptop.
But what beach is that? We're supposed to think it is. What beach is that? Some beach somewhere.
Yeah, it is. It came from the Zoom. I don't know where it is. Yes.
Okay.
Hare
Prabhu,
Krishna.
could I get your contact information, because sometimes the link doesn't come exactly. So I'd like to be able to contact you if I have problems. Do you have my WhatsApp number and my email address?
No, I don't have your WhatsApp. Only
Okay.
if you can send to me.
Yeah,
Only
can I put it
yesterday
in?
I sent you the poster by email.
Yes, I got it. Can I put it in the chat, and then
Yes,
you can
mother. Yes,
share
please.
your contact? Okay,
I will
then.
send my own also.
Okay.
Normally, I used to contact Rajalila and others directly on WhatsApp because probably somehow busy.
So then I'm going to put my everything here, and then you can send me your contact, and then it'll be easier.
Yes, mother. No problem.
So are you in Nairobi?
No, I'm still in Germany.
You're in Germany.
Yes.
Okay.
I coordinate the platform from here.
Okay. Do you speak German also?
Yes, I do.
Wow. How many languages do you speak?
Only 3: English, French, and German.
Wow. It's amazing. So
Trying.
that's a very tricky picture. It looks like you're on the beach, but actually you're in probably the snow of Germany.
Yes, it looks like a beach. So I will play Prabhupada for 10 minutes for devotees to join.
Okay.
Then we start.
Okay.
Let me put it on.
Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Sai. Jaya Radha Madhava Sadasaman Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavindra ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivas Adi Gaur Bhaktavindra ki jai. Sri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Sam Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Navadvip Dham ki jai. Swami To Bhaktavindra ki jai. Ganga Mai ki jai. Jamuna Mai ki jai. Tulasi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Swami To Bhaktavindra ki jai. All glories to the assembled Lord. All glories to the assembled Lord. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Mother. Humble obeisances. Nice to see you.
Haribo. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Mother.
Shall
Hare
I
Krishna.
begin?
Yes,
Hare
it's okay.
Okay. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Is that
Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 10, Departure of Lord Krishna for Dwarka, reading from text number 34 and 35. So how do we do this? I'll chant the Sanskrit and then just give the word for word. Is that how it works?
anyhow you want? Mother.
Okay. Okay. Is there an opportunity for people to repeat? Do you ever have devotees repeat the verse?
If you want us to repeat, we repeat. If you
Okay.
don't want us to
Yeah.
repeat, only you can just go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Kuru Jangala Panchalan Surasenan Sayamunan Brahmavartam Kurukshetram Matsyan Sarasvatam Nata Marudvan Atikramya Savira Birayo Paran Anartan Bhargavo Pagach Shrantavo Manag Ibuhu Kuru Jangala Panchalam Surasenam Sayamunan Brahmavartam Kurukshetram Matsyan Sarasvatan Nata Marudanvan Atikramya Savira Birayo Paran Anartan Bhargavo Pagach Shantavaho Manag Bibu. I'll say the verses one more time and then I'll see if any of you would like to chant. Kuru Jangala Panchalam Surasenan Sayamunan Brahmavartam Kurukshetram Matsyan Sarasvatan Nata Marudvan Atikramya Savira Birayo Paran Anartan Bhargavo Pagach Shantavaho Manag Vibhuhu. Please chant if someone would like to chant.
Okay. Kuru Jangala Panchalan Surasenan Sayamunan Brahmavatam Kuru Shetram Matsyan Saravatan Hata Marodam Vam Akikramyam Sa So Virai Birayo Param Anatan Bhagavo Pagat Shrantavaho Manag Vibho. Sari, want to try?
Someone else like to try?
Yes, Mother, please go ahead. Okay. I'm sorry, I muted them. Okay, please. Yes, Mother, go ahead and try.
Hare Krishna.
Sunjaya.
Always
Sri.
Jaya, my friend.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Haribol, Haribol.
Kuru Jangala Panchalan Sarasena Sayamunan Brahma Bhartanam Kurushetram Matsanam Sarvatan Atham Marudanam Atikrama Saubhiragraha Paran Anartan Bhaga Bhopaga Charan Atavamang Vibhum. Hare Krishna.
Haribol. Thank you so much. Would someone else like to try? Maybe one more person like to try?
Kuru Jangala Panchalan Surasenan Sayamunan Brahma Varatam Kurukshetram Matsyan Saraswatan Atha Marudanvam Atikramya Sovira Birayo Paran Anaratan Bhargavo Pagachach Shantavaho Manag Vibhu.
Thank you. Great. Okay. So now I'll chant the word for word. Kuru Jangala. I don't know if I can hear you repeat, so I'll just say, and then I'll say the English. Kuru Jangala, the province of Delhi. Panchalan, the part of the province Punjab. Surasenan, part of the province of Uttar Pradesh. Sa, with. Jamunan, the districts on the bank of the Yamuna. Brahmavartam, part of northern Uttar Pradesh. Kurukshetram, the place where the battle was fought. Matsyan, the province Matsya. Sarasvatan, part of Punjab. Atha, and so on. Maru, Rajasthan, the land of deserts. Danvam, Madhya Pradesh, where water is very scanty. Atikramya, after passing. Sauvira, Saurashtra. Abhirayo, part of Gujarat. Paran, western side. Anartan, the province of Dwarka. Bhargava, Shonaka. Upagat, overtaken by. Shranta, fatigue. Vaha, the horses. Manak, Vibho, slightly because of the long journey. Translation. O Shonaka, the Lord then proceeded toward Kuru Jangala, Panchala, Surasena, the land on the bank of the river Yamuna, Brahmavarta, Kurukshetra, Matsya, Sarasvata, the province of the desert, and the land of scanty water. After crossing these provinces, he gradually reached the Sauvira and Abhira provinces. Then, west of these, reached Dwarka at last. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. The provinces passed over by the Lord in those days were differently named, but the direction given is sufficient to indicate that he traveled through Delhi, Punjab, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Saurashtra, and Gujarat, and at last reached his home province at Dwarka. We do not gain any profit simply by researching the analogous provinces of those days up to now, but it appears that the desert of Rajasthan and the provinces of scanty water like Madhya Pradesh were present even 5,000 years ago. The theory of soil experts that the desert developed in recent years is not supported by the statements of Bhagavatam. We may leave the matter for expert geologists to research, because the changing universe has different phases of geological development. We are satisfied that the Lord has now reached his own province, Dwarka Dham, from the Kuru provinces. Kurukshetra continues to exist since the Vedic age, and it is sheer foolishness when interpreters ignore or deny the existence of Kurukshetra. So I'd like to chant some prayers of Mangala Charana. Jnanatirmirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manabhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sapadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namini Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatharini Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangolam Gayate Girim Yat Kripas Tamaham Bande Shri Gurun Dinatarinam Vanchakapatarubhyascha Kripasindhu Vaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So thank you, all of you, for joining. Here we are in Africa today. And reading from this text of Srimad Bhagavatam, it's interesting, Srila Prabhupada, in the last line of his purport, oh, I lost the page. But in the last line of his purport, Srila Prabhupada is taking a little bit of a stab at the Bhagavad Gita interpretation by Gandhi ji, because Gandhi wrote his interpretation of Bhagavad Gita, and he said that there's the last verse. Kurukshetra continues to exist since the Vedic age, and it is sheer foolishness when interpreters ignore or deny the existence of Kurukshetra. So Srila Prabhupada is referring to Gandhi's interpretation of Bhagavad Gita, where he said that Kurukshetra means this body, and the 5 Pandavas represent the 5 senses. And it was a completely allegorical interpretation of Bhagavad Gita. So Srila Prabhupada objected to this speculative allegorical interpretation. There's another example of another very famous scholar outside the line of disciplic succession who also interpreted Bhagavad Gita in a speculative way. Of course, in Prabhupada's introduction to Bhagavad Gita, he says that at that time when he wrote that there were at least 600 English translations of Bhagavad Gita. What was the point of another one, he asks. So this other scholar said that he was commenting on Bhagavad Gita 9th chapter, 34th verse, the last verse in the 9th chapter. I won't say his name, but he was speculating that he said it's not to Krishna that we should surrender, because the verse says to surrender to Krishna. So in his speculative idea, he was saying it's not to Krishna that we should surrender, but it's to the unborn, unborn spirit within Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada objected to these interpretations that were coming outside of the disciplic succession in very speculative ways. So Srila Prabhupada called his translation of Bhagavad Gita as it is. But I have a question for all of you. Do you think that before Srila Prabhupada there was Bhagavad Gita as it is? What is your opinion? Do you think there was Bhagavad Gita as it is before Srila Prabhupada?
It was confusing.
Everybody's shaking their heads.
Not original as it is. But
So
Prabhupada
many what? So many.
We have some Bhagavad Gita, but not as it is, as Prabhupada gave it. So Prabhupada came and bring out the cream, the essence of the Gita.
So that's one answer, and that's certainly true. But what I was thinking is something else, that in disciplic succession, before Srila Prabhupada, there was Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Viswanath Chakravarti Thakur, Jiva Goswami. Srila Prabhupada dedicates his Bhagavad Gita translation to Baladev Vidyabhusana. So in one sense, you're all right. In one sense, you were all shaking your heads no. But in one sense, there was Bhagavad Gita as it is before Srila Prabhupada, because there was Bhagavad Gita coming down in a very pure disciplic succession. And not only our disciplic succession, but there's also Ramanujacharya and other Nimbarkacharya. So there are 4 bona fide disciplic successions teaching bhakti, right? So in that sense, there really was Bhagavad Gita as it is before Srila Prabhupada. So I wanted to speak in this class about the idea of interpretation, because I think that's what Prabhupada was pointing toward in that last line of the purport, about the idea of interpretation. So let's try to unpack this a little bit. We tend to think that Srila Prabhupada was against interpretation, but he taught us to understand in the line of disciplic succession coming down from realized acharyas, but not on our own strength and not on the strength of our own scholarship, right? We have to understand Krishna as he is by the mercy of those previous acharyas. His pastimes are real, his pastimes are eternal, and we're meant to one day enter into those transcendental pastimes. So it's not just allegorical, as some people might say, but sometimes, I want to give kind of a broad perspective here. Sometimes a realized acharya like Bhakti Vinod Thakur, I don't know if any of you are familiar with Bhakti Vinod Thakur, who is Prabhupada's guru's father, so coming in our disciplic succession, he gave some allegorical understandings of what the demons in Krishna Leela represented and the anarthas, or the obstacles in devotional service that they represented. I don't know if any of you have seen this before, but it's very interesting. I can give more of them at the end if you'd like. But for example, he said that Putana, the demon Putana, right? The first demon to come to Vrindavan, she represents the false guru. Isn't that interesting? Because she's posing as something she's not, right? Or the Shakatasura, the cart demon, he represents our tendency to carry a cartload of bad habits that we've accumulated in this life and in previous lives as well. So then if each one of those demons in Krishna's Leela represents certain bad habits that we may be harboring in our own hearts. So in that sense, one of the bona fide acharyas has given an allegorical interpretation. But that doesn't mean that Krishna's pastimes aren't real and true and eternal. They're not, the point is, they're not just allegorical. And another important point is that we have to receive them in all humility and understand them in parampara by the grace of Krishna and Guru, and receive the blessings to understand Shastra by learning and hearing from these great realized authorities. So you're probably all aware that sometimes scholars outside of our tradition, scholars who are not coming in disciplic succession, like to study Sanskrit, get a PhD, and comment on all these things, giving their own opinion. For example, one scholar, many scholars, such modern scholars, say that Vyasadeva was not the author of all the Vedic literatures. They may speculate, well, how could one person write all these Vedic literatures? That would be impossible. And they speculate that somebody named Bopadev was actually the author, not Vyasadeva. That's one speculation. Some other speculation is that Radharani's name does not appear in the original Vedas, that she is a modern concoction of the Bhakti Renaissance of the 15th and 16th century. So these are their speculative opinions, but they're not authorized by the great acharyas. And it's said that one of the most important verses that Srila Prabhupada used to quote was that the secrets of bhakti are actually hidden in the hearts of the pure realized acharyas. Therefore, we have to follow the path of these great Mahajans. The second half of the verse goes like this: Dharmasya tattvam shrutayo. Hang on a second, I have to make sure my phone's off. Dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhayam mahajanayena gatasya panta. So this means that the secrets, it's a beautiful, beautiful verse, that the secrets of understanding scripture are actually hidden in the hearts of these pure realized Mahatmas, Mahajans. And in order to understand, therefore, we have to follow in the path of the Mahajans. Yeah. So just a second. Yeah. Sorry, this phone is, I think I'm going to turn off my phone because it keeps ringing. Yes. Okay. So, yeah. So Srila Prabhupada, he was against capricious or whimsical speculative interpretations of scripture by non-practitioners who he called armchair speculators. It really paints a good picture, doesn't it? And sometimes he used to use an example of licking the outside of a bottle of honey. So it's a really good example that people who aren't blessed with access to the inside of the bottle, they're not blessed with access to the secrets of the tradition. They're just like licking the outside of the bottle of honey, and they can't access, actually. They have no idea what the actual essences and sweetness of rasa may be. I was thinking, it kind of reminds me of the private kirtans that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to have in the house of Srivas Thakur before he took his Sankirtan out to the public streets. And no one could access those intimate kirtans unless they were allowed in. Only those who were qualified were allowed to enter into those kirtans. So the point is that we have to become qualified to understand. And how do we become invited in or qualified to understand? Only by the grace of the previous acharyas and by Lord Chaitanya and Krishna himself, right? So another funny example Srila Prabhupada used to give, Sujoya, you're Bengali, so maybe you know this kind of Bengali example, but Srila Prabhupada would tell a story of, so there was a British man who was working for the British government in India for some time. And then he went back to England and he was trying to describe to his British friends, what is the taste, what does jackfruit taste like? He's trying to explain this to his British friends who've never tasted jackfruit, right? And so he said, well, if you had a Muslim guy who had a beard, and then you poured honey into the beard of the Muslim guy, and you tried to suck out the honey from that beard, that would be something like the taste of jackfruit. So it's quite a humorous example, but you know, the point is, how can such an unknown sweetness, the taste of jackfruit, or what the example is really telling us, the taste of bhakti rasa, relationship with Krishna, right? How can this be understood by those who've never experienced it? That's what the example is kind of showing here. So when we think about different authorized and realized commentators, they also have different opinions, which is very interesting. How can perfect realized commentators all have different opinions? So sometimes we see in the commentaries of the acharyas, for example, in the story of Putana, Krishna is said to have closed his eyes. So each of the different acharyas who comment on the 10th canto Srimad Bhagavatam express different opinions for the reason why did Krishna close his eyes. So Viswanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says that Krishna closed his eyes in order to convey the idea that he, as a child, he was prone to be afraid and he wanted to avoid looking at such a demon as Putana. And then Sanatana Goswami says that Krishna closed his eyes because Putana was not qualified to look him in the eye. And then Jiva Goswami says that Krishna wanted to avoid looking at such a scoundrel, right? And then Baladevi Vibhusana says Krishna did not want to feel shameful because she was dressed up as a mother. So it's so interesting to me, isn't it? To you also? That each one is understanding from his own realization, but yet they're individuals and they're all rooted in pure devotional service. So Srila Prabhupada's guru's name, Bhakti Siddhanta, actually means that the divine conclusions of pure bhakti that are given in the line of disciplic succession by the realized acharyas. So in that way, wait, I just want to take a look and see who else is here. Okay, hello to all of you. And there's Andrea, and there's so many other friends. Thank you for joining. Sorry. Oh, Bhakti Dear Damodar Swami, Hare Krishna. Thank you for joining. Wonderful. So thank you all for being here. So yeah, I just wanted to really make the point that Srila Prabhupada wanted us to become realized and independently thoughtful. He wrote this in one letter, that he wanted his disciples to be independently thoughtful and to discuss and examine Shastra from different points of view. It doesn't mean we should be independent outside of the conclusions of the disciplic succession, but he wanted us to examine the conclusions of Shastra, just like examining the different facets of a jewel. You know, if you have a beautiful diamond or a beautiful jewel, you want to look at it and turn it around in the light and look at the different facets of the beauty, right? So this is actually the real meaning of coming together for Istagosti. And Srila Prabhupada used to use this term, discuss it threadbare. Isn't that an interesting term? Discuss it threadbare. In other words, try to see it from every point of view, but still understanding coming in the line of disciplic succession. So my point is here that our acharyas were such brilliant, genius individuals, and yet always seeing in all humility through understanding the wisdom of the previous acharyas who came before them. So it's a beautiful dynamic, isn't it? That they each had their own point of view, but yet in all humility, their understanding coming in line of disciplic succession. And I wanted to make another point that in understanding Srila Prabhupada himself, we have to understand his teachings in the context of the whole body of what he said. Not as, and Srila Prabhupada used another expression, not as he would say, to try to screw out some meaning. Have you ever heard Prabhupada say this, or maybe seen it in his writings? That we should not try to screw out some meaning other than what was intended. So our previous acharyas were also sensitive and spent much of their time and thought and writing dealing with contemporary issues of their day. This is an important point that I think some devotees don't understand. So I wanted to make this point, that these previous acharyas in their own times and places, they were not oblivious to the issues that blocked people's ability to understand and receive these treasures of bhakti. For example, Baladev Vidyabhusana, he had to deal with the criticism that the Gaudiyas, the Ramanandis, were criticizing that the Gaudiyas are unbona fide because they have no commentary on Vedanta Sutra. And then Jiva Goswami wrote explaining the sacred Parakiya rasa of Radha and Krishna that was being criticized in his day. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur had to deal with the misunderstandings and the assumptions of the British colonialists and even his own Bengali brothers who were misinterpreting the Shastras to accommodate the British people who were there. And then Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati had to deal with caste Brahmanism. And then Srila Prabhupada in his own time, he had to fight for our right, you and me, all of you in Africa, all of you in the US, all of you everywhere. Srila Prabhupada actually had to fight for our right, the rights of people outside the Indian Brahminical tradition to have access to Krishna Bhakti. So this is a very, very beautiful point that I think is very important. And there are two verses that are cornerstones of Srila Prabhupada's preaching that he repeated many times in his lectures, in his letters, and everywhere. One of them is this verse. I'll tell you the verse number in case you'd like to look it up. It's Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd canto, 4th chapter, 18th verse. I'll tell you it in Sanskrit. Kiratahu Nandra Pulinda Pulkasam Abhira Shumba Yavana Kasadaya Yenye Chapapa Yadapasraya Shraya Sudhanti Tasmai Prabha Vishnave Namaha. So this is a very interesting verse that actually names different people, different races of people of the world. It names the Turks and the Greeks and the Mongolians. Oh, there it is. Yeah, let's put it up so we can see. Yeah, go up a little further. Yeah, all these different kinds of people it's so inclusive. The verse is totally inclusive that all of these different kinds of people of the world who are addicted to sinful acts, like we all were before meeting Srila Prabhupada, can all be purified by taking shelter of the devotees of the Lord. Why? Because the Lord is the supreme power. And so the devotee offers his respectful obeisances unto such a powerful Lord. So yeah, that's a verse that proves from Srimad Bhagavatam that what Srila Prabhupada was doing was bona fide, that he was giving us access, and so many people objected. How dare you go to Africa or Europe or America and make these people, call them Brahmins? That's against the tradition. You're going to, Bhaktivedanta Swami, you're going to spoil the whole thing. But let's look at this. Kirata means, okay, Kiratas, tribal people of India, Hana, Germany, Andhra, Pulinda, this is the Greeks. And then go down a little bit. And then Abira, this is the Sindh province, all these different people, and the Greeks, and go down a little bit more. And basically everybody, right? The Shimbas, the inhabitants of old Bharata, the Yavanas, that means the Turks. Yeah, so basically everybody who in traditional India is considered ineligible. Kasha, let's see. Oh yeah, that's the Mongolians. Yeah. So yeah, all these people who people in India considered ineligible, right? They're all made eligible by the mercy of the Supreme Lord and his powerful devotees of the Lord. And there's one other verse that is another cornerstone, I would say, of Srila Prabhupada's preaching that I wanted to share. It goes like this. Yata kanchana tam yati kamsyam rasa vidanataha tattva diksha vidanena vijatam jayate nrinam. So this is a verse that was quoted by both Sanatan Goswami and Jiva Goswami. It's from the Bhakti Sandarbha, and then it was also printed by them in the Hari Bhakti Vilas. But this verse says that just like ordinary bell metal that you make bells out of, by mixing it with mercury and by an alchemical process, that ordinary metal can be turned into gold. In the same way, an ordinary person, when he's properly initiated, can acquire the qualities of a Brahmana by the mercy of the Lord and the devotees. So these are two very important verses that if you ever hear anyone trying to discount the eligibility of all people of the world, these verses prove that we do have access by the grace of great devotees like Srila Prabhupada. So I wanted to tell you a little story. Srila Prabhupada warned us of the dangers of unrestricted association between men and women. Of course, you can read that in the Srimad Bhagavatam and different scriptures. But I'll tell you this story. It's an interesting story. So the temple in Calcutta at this time had very, very cramped quarters. And there was a ladies' ashram that you had to walk through the ladies' ashram to get to the upstairs to where some of the men were staying. So it was a really difficult situation, too crowded, really. And so the men were all out on a walk one morning with Srila Prabhupada, and they were all complaining about the women that, we don't want to associate with these women, too much association with women, Prabhupada is not good. And meanwhile, all the ladies were back at the temple, cooking the breakfast, dressing the deities, cleaning the temple, cleaning Prabhupada's quarters, doing all these things while the men enjoyed a lovely walk with Srila Prabhupada. So Srila Prabhupada, they're complaining about having to associate with these ladies. And Srila Prabhupada didn't say a word during the whole walk. He was completely silent. But then when they came back from the walk and they walked up the stairs of the temple, all the ladies were there to greet Srila Prabhupada with folded hands on the side of the stairs. And Srila Prabhupada looked at them and he said, he looked at them and then he turned to the men. He said, yes, but if you associate with these women, you will go back to Godhead. So that's such a nice story, you know. So Srila Prabhupada, like his predecessor Acharyas, he understood the essence of all Vedic literatures, and he never got trapped up or waylaid by the mundane surface understandings, right? So my point here is that we can't whimsically interpret Shastra or the teachings of Srila Prabhupada, or try to screw out maybe one statement we read from Srila Prabhupada, isolated out of context of the whole context of everything he taught, right? Sometimes we hear a devotee pull some quote out, but it's not in line with the whole body of what Srila Prabhupada taught, right? And not in context of the time and place they were spoken. And yeah, Prabhupada used this term, trying to screw out some meaning that was not really the intention, right? So Srila Prabhupada gave pure bhakti, and yet it was according to the time and place and according to how people in a certain time and place would understand. So I wanted to share another quote with you. This is from Srila Prabhupada's Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila, 7th chapter, verse 31 and 32. So the verse says, seeing the Mayavadis and others fleeing, Lord Chaitanya thought, I wanted everyone to be immersed in this inundation of love of Godhead, but some of them have escaped. Therefore, I shall devise a trick to drown them also. And so then Srila Prabhupada gives a very interesting purport to this verse, where he takes a few pokes at his godbrothers, actually. And Srila Prabhupada says, an acharya who comes for the service of the Lord cannot be expected to conform to a stereotype, for he must find the ways and means by which Krishna consciousness may be spread. Yeah, you want to go down to the purport? He says, sometimes jealous persons criticize the Krishna consciousness movement because it engages equally both boys and girls in distributing love of Godhead. Then he says, not knowing that boys and girls in countries like Europe and America mix very freely, these fools and rascals criticize the boys and girls in Krishna consciousness for intermingling. But these rascals should consider that one cannot suddenly change a community's social customs. However, since both the boys and girls are being trained to become preachers, these girls are not ordinary girls, but they are as good as their brothers who are preaching Krishna consciousness. Therefore, to engage both boys and girls in fully transcendental activities is a policy intended to spread the Krishna consciousness movement. And then he says, these jealous fools, I think I skipped a little bit in what I have printed here, but let's see. These jealous fools will have to be satisfied with their own foolishness because they cannot understand how to spread Krishna consciousness by adopting the ways and means that are favorable for this purpose. Lord Chaitanya is the one who invented a way to capture those who had strayed from Krishna consciousness. So yeah, I think this is an extraordinary verse from Lord Chaitanya and an extraordinary purport. So thank you all so much. These are just a few thoughts on the idea of interpretation or understanding understanding the whole context and understanding the mood and teachings of Srila Prabhupada and his previous acharyas coming down in disciplic succession. So what do you all think? What was important for you here? What's a takeaway, or what's a feedback, or maybe someone might have a question or something like that? What was important for you here?
Thank you, Mother, for your nice class. It was really deep. Thank you so much. I have a question on interpretation. So the Prabhupada wrote so many books, which most of us have not been able to read all Prabhupada books. And today, so many devotees are also writing books and interpreting Sanskrit, even people from Europe, from America, from Africa, from China. And their knowledge of Sanskrit is not like Prabhupada. And they want devotees to read these books they are all writing. So how do we take this? Because the translation may not be authentic like Prabhupada. And many devotees are not even reading Prabhupada books, but they are reading books written by other devotees of today. So how do we find the cream of this Vedic knowledge that Prabhupada gave? How do we see the book as authentic? As now we have Bhagavad Gita as it is. To my own knowledge, many devotees writing books is not as Prabhupada book as it is. So how do we understand this? So what shall devotees do?
What I would suggest, thank you for a very important question. Thank you very much. What I would suggest is we should all make it a goal of our lives to read all of Srila Prabhupada's books, especially during this time of Kartik. Maybe you can try to delve into the books that you haven't read by Srila Prabhupada. It's very, very important to read the whole Srimad Bhagavatam, the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bhagavad Gita, Nectar of Devotion. And sometimes if it's hard to do it on your own, it's nice to join a little reading group that you can do it with friends. I also suggest that devotees read books about Srila Prabhupada because we understand that there's the book Bhagavat, Srimad Bhagavatam, but then there's also the person Bhagavat, Srila Prabhupada. So when we read stories about Srila Prabhupada, these biographies of Srila Prabhupada, we get a whole other dimension of how Srila Prabhupada was dealing in the real world in his own time and place. For example, Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. I know my husband Anuttama Prabhu has read it so many times. He's got so many markers practically on every page. And you can find so many examples from Srila Prabhupada's life when you read these biographies. So that's very important. I'll tell you one story that's really important. For example, when Srila Prabhupada was in the beginning in New York, 26 2nd Avenue, he had a crew of, quite a motley crew, I would say, of young boys who were not very respectful to him or to the landlord. So the landlord liked Srila Prabhupada, but he didn't like these boys who were hanging around him. So Srila Prabhupada told all the boys, his name was Mr. Chuti, a Polish man. And he told all the boys, treat Mr. Chuti to be just like your own father. Well, these boys probably didn't respect their own fathers very much anyway either. But anyway, that's what Srila Prabhupada told them. And get this, Srila Prabhupada was helping Mr. Chuti empty the garbage, carry the trash from all the neighbors out to the street. Can you imagine? Srila Prabhupada had just come from Vrindavan. He was a great saint, a great scholar, highly respected in Sri Vrindavan Dham. And yet he's carrying out the trash, helping this Mr. Chuti. What was in that trash? Probably all kinds of meat, all kinds of liquor, all kinds of who knows what. And, at that time, there were not so many plastic bags, so it probably smelled like anything. Here's the great Srila Prabhupada helping this man. So what can we learn from such a story like that? So this shows why it's very important to read these biographies of Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada Lilamrita. Giriraj Swami has just written an extraordinary book called I'll Build You a Temple. And there's so many amazing stories of how Srila Prabhupada was dealing with ordinary people and extraordinary people in books like that. So it's very important to read those biographies of Prabhupada to get an idea, again, of Prabhupada in context, right? And also very important to read his writings. So I think both are very important. Try to do it. Try to make some goals for yourself. Maybe during this holy month of Kartik, you can read a little more than you usually do. And if it's hard for you, then maybe there's a little group you could join. And once Srila Prabhupada was asked by someone, he said, Prabhupada, I don't like to read very much. And Prabhupada said, then just open to any page and read something. So for people who don't like to read very much, you can just open to any page and get some great instruction. Sometimes when you have a problem, you can also pray to find a solution to your problem and then open Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam. Sometimes the answer to your question will pop out right out of the book. So I think that's an important point you brought up. What else? Does anybody else? And
yes, a question from Paola Andrea, please.
Paola Andrea, you got it. Okay.
Can you unmute?
Hare Krishna, Rukmini Prabhu.
Hare
Thank you so much. I love how the Prabhu always says my name so nicely.
Oops, you're frozen. You got frozen. You got frozen, Paula and Jaya. Let's see, what should we do? Should we
Okay.
go to Sa? Oh, there, she's back. Okay, you got unfrozen. Okay. Now she's frozen again. Let's see.
Please unmute your mic. Okay, it's okay now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Now we can. Now we
Okay,
can.
so sorry, we're having internet issues. What I wanted to share is that my takeaway, which is something I had never thought of before, and the way you phrased it, I really enjoyed, is how are we to understand the sweetness of bhakti if we've never tasted it, and understanding that that's why it's so important for us to get this knowledge from the previous acharyas, from Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, from those devotees that have had that taste. Because, you know, like with that jackfruit explanation that you did, which was hilarious, like, it's like, how can we understand it if we don't listen from those that have actually experienced it? So I never thought of it that way, of affirming the disciplic succession in such a way. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Very important. Otherwise, we're just licking the outside of a bottle of honey, right? We have no access unless we have access through humility, hearing from them. Thank you. Important point. Sahadev Prabhu, what do you have to share?
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Mother.
Hare Krishna.
Uh,
Where are you,
it's-
Sahadev? You're in a big office somewhere.
oh, no. It's just a virtual.
Oh, it's virtual. Okay.
Yes.
Are you in Africa right now, or are you also in Germany or somewhere else?
No, I'm in Harrisburg.
Harrisburg, Pennsylvania?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
The text and in the purport, Srila Prabhupada, the text itself talks about desert, and Srila Prabhupada also mentioned desert when Sri Krishna was moving from Vrindavan to Dwaraka. And I should say, you made us feel like we were on the desert. We were missing you. We have missed you for so long. So it's good to see you again.
Thank you. Good to see you as well. Thank you so much.
One takeaway from what you shared with us is how these great acharyas we have on our line may seemingly have different things to say about the same topic, but they all boil down to the same thing. It's just a matter of the realizations. And so that helps me understand and appreciate that even if I hear different gurus of today say different things on the same subject matter, that is also allowed. It's possible, as long as it does not deviate from our Siddhanta. And when you asked about before Srila Prabhupada came to the West, was there Bhagavad Gita as it is? I was shaking my head. I said, no, because my thinking was that, especially in the West, of course, our line has always been there. So we had the Bhagavad Gita of Bhaktisiddhanta Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, but I believe such editions did not make their way to the West. Mostly it was these Mayavadis editions that were finding themselves to the West. So Srila Prabhupada brought as it is, which is non-different from his previous acharyas' understanding. But my question,
thank you.
my
good
question,
point. That's a good point. Thank you very much.
My question is, sometimes I get emotional, which is not, I mean, it's okay, but It's not very good in public, but it's so painful. It's so painful to see Srila Prabhupada treated the way this recent fracas in Bangladesh. Initially, I didn't even realize that they consciously burned Srila Prabhupada's murti. And later on, I saw that they burned Srila Prabhupada's murti. And the most painful part of it all is seeing a problem. You know it's a serious problem, you have to do something about it, yet you can't do anything about it. Here I am in the US here, they're over there in Bangladesh. Even if I can do something, what actually can I do to these people who did these atrocities to the devotees and Srila Prabhupada? So my question is, it might be individualistic, but is it not possible that devotees can do something to protect themselves? For example, like building a gated security gate for the altar, whereby when people like even try to break into the temple, they cannot get into the altar. At least to do something, rather than just praying to Krishna that Krishna will make something happen. Please, I do not want this to be political, please, because there has been advice from our leadership, like not to raise any thing that will escalate issues, which I totally agree. But
Okay, thank you.
I think that devotees will have to be able to do something to protect themselves, especially when we are in our own home. We're not going outside and somebody comes to attack us. Well,
Yes, thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Very important. Thank you.
I'm sorry. My question is not actually a question. It's not. I don't know whether a question is a statement, but I'm completely confused and very angry. But it's painful because even though I'm so angry, there is really nothing I can do, and that is what makes it more painful. Because
well, there are some things that we can do. For example, you're in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. So this Saturday, devotees have organized demonstrations, peaceful demonstrations, in Philadelphia, which is not so far from you, in New York, in Washington, D.C., in different places, in Houston, I know, Chicago, many different places. And devotees are going to peacefully demonstrate with signs that are not full of hate, but signs requesting that security and protection and honoring the rights of all minorities. So that's something devotees are doing. My husband and Nityama Prabhu we've been working on this without sleep for the past many days, organizing this. And the message is that we don't want to, what does it say in the Bible? An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. We don't want to fight hate with more hate, because we can have fanatical people in our own Hare Krishna movement ourselves. So we have to learn to be broad-minded and understand that all people have a right to worship according to their choice. So what they're doing is they're making a coalition. They've made a coalition between the Hindus, the Christians, the Buddhists, and all the minority people in Bangladesh, and asking for protection and security. My husband is going to be meeting with the people at the Bangladesh embassy here in Washington tomorrow. So there are things we can do, but I think we have to weed out fanaticism in our own hearts and in our own movement, where people want to go and start a big war, or, you know, let's just go kill people. No, that's not the solution. So yeah, absolutely, you're saying there should be protection. The temple should have protection. They should have security guards so that nobody can come in like that. And how that's going to be done, that should be established by those temples. But it's a very important point. And I think, you know, we are emotional beings in one sense, but we have to try to weed out that hate in our own hearts and in the hearts of the people that we can have impact with, and not treat hate with more hate. So we should stand up for the rights of all minority people everywhere. So thank you for your care, and let's keep the situation of all the Bangladesh devotees in our prayers. Let's all pray for them and see what, you know, this may be an opportunity. Maybe the government of Bangladesh will see that they have to be more proactive in protecting its minority citizens. So yeah, very important point. Thank you so much. Who else has a...
Thank you, Mother. Yesterday I was asking a question on this subject of Kurukshetra, that Krishna was instigating Arjuna to fire the Brahmastra weapons, rain, thunder, weapon, whatever he was firing. These are mantras. They're also weapons. So I was, in relation to this of Bangladesh issue, I was wondering, at what point can devotees apply Brahmastra, all these different mantras we have, which are spiritual? That is, a mantra can put violent people to sleep before police come and take them away. Why don't we apply mantras in such a situation?
Well, maybe you are expert in realization of how to apply Brahmastras and how to withdraw Brahmastras, but even Abhimanyu knew how to bring in the Brahmastra, but not how to get out. So, you know, I think in any case, we should become very heartfelt chanters of the holy name of Krishna, and try to teach what it means to be people of the essence. We should be examples of what it means to honor all people, all living beings of every race, of every culture, of every religion, and that will set an example for the world. So, you know, it may take longer to become expert at Brahmastras, but I think this is really the path to set an example for the world of what it means to be really authentic practitioners of real religion, you know, which can come in many forms, you know. So, yeah.
Yeah, because we as devotees, we are ahimsa, non-violence. We can't carry weapons, machete or guns, but we can use mantra peacefully. Nobody will even know what we use.
Well, in any case, the temples, in any case, the temple should have protection. The temple should have protection, security guards. They should have protection. They should have, as you said, or maybe it was Sahadev who said, fences, protection. So yeah, that should be established. That's important and shouldn't be ignored. We can't say, oh, I depend on Krishna and not take precaution, right? We have to depend on Krishna and take good precaution as well.
Mataji.
Yes, Sujaya. Sujaya is from Bangladesh, so we can hear her perspective from a Bangladeshi devotee.
Mataji, when bulk of people come, so there is no way to protect with a security guard or any fence like that. So I think, is my personal opinion, I don't know, we have to do something to make them scared. We'll not do any harm to anybody, but we have to do something. Where the government is totally silent about this matter. And they also, and in the Bangladesh temple in Noakhali, they already, called the police before the incidents, but they didn't come. And they did come after that, the incident. So we have to protect our temple.
Very true.
My opinion, I don't know, Mataji, but I'm feeling like that, Mataji.
That's a very good opinion.
Because we are sufferer.
Right, right. I'm just thinking perhaps the Bangladesh government, if they see worldwide protests in Germany, in London, in all over Europe, all over America, in other countries of the world, maybe they will see that they have to take some actions. So hopefully that's what these protests, these coordinated protests, will bring about some change in the minds of the government. And in any case, we're following in the mood of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When they tried to stop the Sankirtan movement, he staged a gigantic Harinam Sankirtan with hundreds of thousands of people, and they all marched to the home of the political authority at that time, the Qazi. So they all marched. They had a peaceful demonstration, and then Lord Chaitanya went and spoke to the government. He sat down with the Qazi and spoke to him. So that's the method that Anuttama Prabhu and these other leaders are trying to bring about right now. Speak to the government authorities, show them what needs to be done, and have peaceful protests that are really demanding the rights of all minority people everywhere. So hopefully there'll be some success there.
Yes, Mataji, before that before that
it's
they
embarrassing for a government to have an international protest against them, right?
Before that, Mataji, they didn't kill the people. Now they're killing the devotees.
Horrible.
That is my main concern, Mataji.
Yeah. And we have to be concerned for all the people who've suffered, not only our own devotees. Because before, I was in Tampa with you recently, and you were telling me that before they were attacking some Hindu temples, but they weren't attacking ISKCON. So maybe this is a lesson to all of us that we can't tolerate other people being attacked. We have to stand up for others as well as ourselves. So thank you. Keep all of us, let's keep it in our prayers and pray that the government will have some take this seriously. Thank you. Thank you. I know you still have relatives there in Bangladesh.
Yes,
yeah. So please, everybody, keep this in your prayers, and we'll use the mantra, the weapon of the Hare Krishna mantra, to pray for protection and peace for all people. Thank you all. Does anyone else have a question about anything?
Sahadev raised hand up.
Oh, Sahadev, is your hand still up from before, or it's a new question?
No, it's a new one.
Okay.
Hare Krishna. Mother Sujoya.
Yes, Prabhuji.
We are with you. We're praying. We're not praying for you. We're praying with you because we are all in it together.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Somehow, Guru and Krishna will make something positive out of this mess. Mother Rukmini, I think it's both a question and a remark.
Okay.
My short, shallow, brief realization of devotional service is that it all starts with the Guru. When one is able to serve and please the Guru, then the mercy flows. And from my own observation, Srila Prabhupada's direct disciples develop Krishna consciousness very, very quickly. In a very short span of time, very newly devotees were doing many amazing things. And to me, part of the reason was because devotees were worshiping Srila Prabhupada. I'm not very old in devotional service, but I am fortunate enough when I first joined devotional service, we used to do Guru Puja every day to our living Guru and Srila Prabhupada every day. And then at some point, because of certain situations that came up, present day Guru worship was put on hold, which is also understandable. But if this continues, then I'm afraid, I know you very well read the book, Animal Farm by George Orwell, where they started changing things. And instead of using the word change, they said, no, we're not changing anything, we are adjusting. So we've made some adjustments. But if no education is given to the next generation and the next generation, then these adjustments will become the standards. And so these new upcoming devotees wouldn't understand that the guru walking, eating, dancing with them are worshipable and will not give them that due respect. And if that happens, then our spiritual growth is going to be hindered. So my question and concern is, at what point is ISKCON going to let devotees understand that the gurus in the past and the gurus of today are all the same, they are all worshipable? Just handle it the way you want. But I know you are not, but handle it the way you want. But my concern,
anyone who is a guru in the ISKCON society only has that right because of hearing from Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada is the Siksha Guru for us all. So someone may have a Diksha Guru, and it's very important that respect be given to the Diksha Guru, the Siksha Guru. But Srila Prabhupada is the preeminent Siksha Guru for all of us. So that's why it's so important that we read his books, not only his books, but books about him to understand how he behaved in different situations. So yeah, the worship of the Guru is important. But first and foremost, really, we have to understand that Srila Prabhupada is that foremost Siksha, preeminent Siksha Guru for all of us. And I think that's a good remedy for the situation. Because otherwise things will break apart. That I have my guru, you have your guru, everybody has their guru, mine is the best, this and that. But if we all keep Srila Prabhupada and his teachings and his example in the center, I think that'll avoid those problems. So thank you for your concern for Srila Prabhupada's ISKCON society. And let's all keep Srila Prabhupada in the center and his teachings in the center, and not break apart into groupism. Yeah. Anybody else have any questions? You're all so philosophical.
Please help us to have your association at least once in a month, please.
Oh, thank
if
you.
Possible.
I would try my best. Thank you.
Okay,
thank you for the invitation.
Thank you.
Thanks to all of you. I don't see that there are any more questions. I think we're good.
Yes, Mother, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for the invitation.
Devotees to unmute yourselves and let's chant Hare Krishna to Mother for coming for today. Hare
Krishna,
Hare Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare
Hare Rama,
Hare Rama, Hare Hare.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you for the invitation. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Ki Jai.
Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to Her Grace Rukmini Devi Ki Jai. Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare.